Good afternoon, fourth grade. Today we're going to continue reading in our novel, The Red Pyramid. And in today's parallel teaching, it's really important that we know about the Rosetta Stone. So we're going to read an article about it right now so that we will be prepared when it comes up in our novel. All right, so before we get started, we have a quick write. It says, describe the Kane family. What is Sadie's relationship like with her father and Carter? Why is it this way? And so you need to talk about how Sadie does not live with her father and brother. Instead, she lives in England in a boarding school, and she only sees them twice a year, which is why they don't have a great relationship. Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready for the focus question. The focus question says, how is Sadie's point of view about the events in the British Museum different from Carter's? And we are learning about how to describe events in the story and determine what unknown words mean. Our vocabulary words are curator, that is the person who's in charge of the museum exhibits. The Rosetta Stone, that's a stone slab that was found in 1799 near the city of Rosetta. And an artifact is an object that was made by a human and it has cultural or historical significance. So it's something from the past. All right, you can go ahead and tear off your text. And before we get started, we want to ask a how or why question about the title. And my why question that you're going to write down in 1A is, why is the Rosetta Stone important? Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready to read. Let's get started. The Rosetta Stone, a 1,700-pound piece of rock called a stele, discovered in the sands of Egypt, was the key to modern understanding of ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs. And this is the reason why it's so important. Because we discovered the Rosetta Stone, we're able to understand the Egyptian written language, the hieroglyphs. In box 1B, we would write, the Rosetta Stone was the key to modern understanding of the ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs. Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready to keep reading. Let's keep reading, and we want to know, how is the Rosetta Stone the key to understanding? The stone, discovered in 1799 by a soldier in the French army, headed by Napoleon Bonaparte, contains essentially the same text in 3 different languages: Ancient Greek, Demotic, and hieroglyphs. A full translation of the Greek version was completed in 1803, but it was 20 years before linguists worked out the details of the hieroglyphs. We'll stop right there because we know how it's a key understanding. We know that it contains a text with 3 different languages, and eventually they were able to use the hieroglyphs. So in box 2A, we would write, the Rosetta Stone contains the same text in 3 different languages: Ancient Greek, Demotic, and hieroglyphs. Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready to keep reading. We want to know, how did the British get possession of the Rosetta Stone? It was discovered by the French, and we want to know, how did the British get control of it? We're in paragraph 3. Bonaparte became leader of the French army and people in the late 18th century. Because of the French Revolution and other European governments' opposition to it, France was at war with most of the other European powers for 2 decades. Because Bonaparte was a central figure in a series of conflicts, These are often called the Napoleonic Wars. The French presence in Egypt intensified as the 18th century was ending. French troops claimed ownership of large parts of Egypt. While building forts in the area, French troops found a stone near the Nile Delta town of Rashid, also called Rosetta. The stone, 45 inches high, 28.5 inches wide, and 11 inches thick, was one of the many artifacts unearthed by the French forces. In 1801, British troops defeated the French forces in Egypt. Part of the settlement after this battle was that Britain gained control of the stone and other artifacts. Beginning the following year, the British Museum had the Rosetta Stone on display, but at that time neither the British nor the French really knew what they found. All right, this paragraph tells us how the British got control of the Rosetta Stone. The British beat the French army in Egypt, and because they won the battle in Egypt, they got to take the stone and they took it back to a British museum. In box 2B, we would write, the British defeated the French army in Egypt in 1801 and got possession of the Rosetta Stone as part of the peace agreement. The Rosetta Stone was placed in the British Museum for display. Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready to keep reading. Box 3 says, how did linguists figure out the meaning of the hieroglyphs using the Rosetta Stone? We're in the third paragraph from the bottom. The use and understanding of hieroglyphs has gone out of fashion in the early centuries AD. A few Arab historians made an attempt in the 9th and 10th centuries, but without success. A few more European historians tried again in the 16th, 17th, and 18th centuries, still without success. The discovery of the Rosetta Stone renewed an interest in understanding hieroglyphs, and historians and linguists tried again. So we still don't know how they found out. We just know that it took them a really, really long time to figure out how to read the hieroglyphs. Scholars still understood ancient Greek, but struggled initially with the administrative technicalities of the language on the stone. A British translation of the ancient Greek text was available in early 1802. The following year, the French linguist working on a copy of the text made an initial discovery, produced a copy in both French and Latin. Okay, and then in the next two paragraphs, it talks about how this French linguist learned how to read Demotic script, and then he found out that on one of the sides of the stone, it had the names of these leaders. And another French scholar, Sylvester de Sacy, he found the names of some other people on the stone. And then we're on the back where it says Sylvester de Sacy did not work on the translation further except to remark to one of his colleagues that the names in hieroglyph might be written phonetically. This supposition was based on work done by previous French scholars. A British researcher took the French suggestion to heart and succeeded in identifying several similarities between the ancient Greek texts and the Demotic script. Until that time, researchers in all countries had believed the texts were independent of one another. So, the linguists shared information, and they realized that the Greek text and the Demotic text said the same thing. And that led them to believe that the hieroglyphs must also say the same thing as the other two texts. Okay, and so in this next paragraph, that's when they find out that the Rosetta Stone was written, the same text was written in 3 different languages. Go to the paragraph that says many historians. Many historians now think that the Rosetta Stone text is written in 3 languages so that most Egyptians could understand it. We'll stop right there because we have information for box 3. In box 3, we would write, the linguist could translate the Greek text and then realize that the text all said the same thing. They used the Greek text to figure out the code for the hieroglyphs. Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready to keep reading. We're in the paragraph that says many historians. Many historians now think the Rosetta Stone text was written in 3 languages so most Egyptians could understand it. Ancient Greek was the language of the pharaohs at the time the stone was carved. In 196 BC, Demotic was the common script of Egypt at the time, and of course, hieroglyphs was the language of the priests. All right, so we know why historians think the Rosetta Stone was written in 3 different languages. In the first part of box 4, we would write, historians believe that the text on the Rosetta Stone was written in Greek because that was the language of the pharaohs. Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready for the next part. In the next set of lines, you would write, it was written in Demotic because that's the language most Egyptians spoke at the time. Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready for the next part. In the last part, you would write, and it was written in hieroglyphs because that was the language of the Egyptian priests. Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready for the paragraph. And for the paragraph, you would answer the question, why is the Rosetta Stone important, and how was the stone decoded?